Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into a kind of philosophical arena, thinking about those really deep questions, who are we? How do our societies actually work?
Exactly. Like those late night debates where everything's on the table.
Right. And we're sort of framing this through two perspectives. Let's call the first one person A.
Okay, person A. Think Freudian lens here. Really analytical, looking hard at morality, repression, culture, power dynamics. Bit provocative, maybe?
Definitely. And then there's person B. This is the voice of, well, sheer curiosity, I guess.
Yeah, someone who hears an idea and immediately asks why. Or is that really true? Pushing back, wanting to get to the bottom of things.
So the idea is to really dig into human desire, the structures we build, the forces often hidden, shaping what we believe, how we act. We'll use some of those, let's say, Freudian concepts as a jumping off point.
A catalyst, yeah. Not dogma, but a way to start the conversation about our world now.
Okay, let's dive in then. Person A, you had this observation about collective behavior, like during the pandemic, seeing echoes of older rituals.
Yes, exactly. Think about it. The empty streets, the masks, the hand sanitizer everywhere. It wasn't just practical stuff, was it?
Go on.
It felt like a collective performance, a shared ritual, almost. And it made me think, are these secular actions tapping into that same really old human need that maybe birthed religion?
What need is that?
The need for order when things feel chaotic, managing fear, uncertainty through doing something together, a shared practice. Freud saw religion partly like that, a response to these deep anxieties.
So you're asking if our modern, supposedly rational responses are still driven by those same psychological roots, just in different clothes?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we still performing rituals to manage fear, even if we call it public health?
Okay, interesting parallel. But person B, you're bound to challenge this. Equating pandemic protocols with religious ritual, are they really the same thing deep down?
Well, I see the surface similarity, of course, collective action facing a threat. But I guess I question if the motivation is truly the same.
Yes.
Religious rituals, they often come from believing in something supernatural,
Yeah.
right? Higher powers, things beyond the empirical.
Okay.
Pandemic rules, well, they're supposedly based on science, on trying to control a virus with evidence, even if that evidence shifts around.
So the why is different.
I think fundamentally, yes. Wearing a mask because of viral transmission data isn't quite the same as wearing a religious symbol because of faith, even if both are public acts. The underlying belief system feels key.
Right, the belief system. Okay, person A, let's connect this to another big idea. Repression as a cornerstone of civilization itself. How does that Freudian thought link to religion historically?
Well, civilization fundamentally requires us to hold back, doesn't it? To suppress our more, let's say, primal instincts.
You mean Eros and Thanatos?
Exactly. The life drive, pleasure, creation, Eros. And the drive towards destruction, aggression, death, and Thanatos. Society can't function if those are just running wild.
Makes sense.
So historically, religion often provided the rule book, the moral framework. But maybe more than that, it gave symbolic outlets for those bottled up energies.
Like what?
Think about channeling sexuality into marriage, or directing aggression outwards in, say, crusades or holy wars, or easing the fear of death with ideas of salvation and afterlife.
So it gives rules and ways to sort of let off steam within those rules.
Precisely. A framework for repression, but also a kind of safety valve for the pressure those instincts build up.
A societal pressure valve. Interesting. Person B, though, if civilization depends on this repression, often managed by religion historically, what's the downside for us as individuals?
That's the big question, isn't it? If we have to constantly push down these fundamental parts of ourselves, does it make us sick in a way.
Sick how?
Does it lead to this background hum of anxiety, of neurosis across society? And also, if we rely on these external codes like religious doctrine to tell us right from wrong, do we lose the ability to figure out our own internal conflicts? Do we kind of, outsource the job of managing our own desires?
Outsourcing responsibility. Does being civilized mean we're inherently a bit neurotic, maybe?
It makes you wonder what the personal cost is, definitely.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Person A, you mentioned this idea that humans keep finding new things to believe in, new transcendent ideas, like it's a cycle.
Yes, it does seem that way. Throughout history, we seem to need systems of belief that go beyond just the material world.
Even now.
I think so. The content changes, sure. ancient gods become, I don't know, political ideologies or self-help movements or this almost religious faith in technology fixing everything.
But the underlying need is the same.
The need for structure, for meaning, for feeling part of something bigger. The names change, the rituals look different, but that basic human drive to explain suffering, death, mystery, it seems to just keep going. We're always looking for that larger story.
The packaging changes, but the need for belief persists. Person B, do these newer secular faiths really work the same way as traditional religion? And what happens when people lose faith in them? Is it the same kind of crisis?
I see the pattern, the search for meaning, but I'm not sure they function identically.
Why not?
Traditional religions usually have that supernatural element, right? Divine authority, maybe an afterlife that carries a certain kind of weight, specific moral demands, maybe certain comforts too.
Okay.
Secular ideologies, politics, tech utopianism, whatever, they can inspire huge devotion, yeah. But they often lack that supernatural piece. They might be easier to challenge with evidence, maybe easier to revise.
Just losing faith might feel different.
Potentially. Losing religious faith can be a deep existential blow. Losing faith in a political party, while maybe upsetting, might just lead you to look for another party, another framework. It might not shake your fundamental sense of meaning in quite the same way. Maybe.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, person A, let's talk power. Religion and authority, kings, priests, they've often been tangled up together. Do you see that same dynamic playing out now in our secular world?
Oh, absolutely. History is full of the divine right of kings, priests as the link to God, religion backing up state power.
And today?
I think we see echoes. Think about how government announcements, especially in a crisis, can feel almost like pronouncements you just have to accept. Or how scientific statements, even though based on evidence ideally, are often taken on faith by most people. Even corporate influence shaping our desires through ads, it's like we surrender a bit of autonomy.
To who, though? Not God, but maybe experts. The market.
Exactly. To perceived authority, maybe for a feeling of security or convenience. It's a shift in who holds that authority, but the dynamic feels similar. We hand over some control.
A transfer of authority. Person B, is that just unavoidable? Do we have to give up some autonomy to live together?
Yeah.
And is the necessity claimed by, say, the government really the same as a divine revelation?
That's the crux of it, right? Do we need some level of surrendered autonomy for society to even work? Probably. But I think we have to constantly ask if the necessity claimed by secular powers is truly justified.
Compared to religious claims?
Yeah. Are these secular necessities based on reason, transparency? Or can they also be a way to control people, subtly limiting freedom, kind of like religious dogma sometimes did? We need to keep questioning why that authority is being claimed.
While always questioning the basis of authority. Okay, person A, thinking about us, the individuals in all this, how do we actually manage this constant push and pull between what we want and what society expects, this grand bargain?
Well, we're doing it constantly, aren't we? We feel our own urges, desires, impulses, and then there are the rules, the norms, the values of our culture.
And they clash.
Often, yeah. It creates this inner conflict, this tension, what I want versus what's allowed, what's expected. We learn really early on to suppress things, to adjust our behavior.
And that shapes who we are.
Absolutely. Navigating that tension, making those compromises, that's a huge part of forming our identity. But there's always a cost, right?
Yeah.
Some inner friction from burying parts of ourselves to fit in.
The cost of belonging. Person B, given these structures, these expectations, how much space is there really for genuine self-expression? Are we just performing?
People definitely find ways to express themselves, no doubt. But I do wonder how much of that expression is truly free. Or is it shaped, filtered, maybe even unconsciously by what society deems acceptable?
So is it real self-expression or just acceptable performance?
Yeah, is it authentic? Or are we just finding creative ways to stay within the lines? It's the tough question about how genuine our lives can be within these systems.
Profound questions indeed. Person A, you brought up this really interesting, maybe provocative analogy between individual neurosis and cultural pathology. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Sure. Just like one person can get stuck in, say, distorted thinking or compulsive habits to cope with inner conflict. I think societies can develop collective versions of that. Rigid structures, really dogmatic beliefs, even destructive practices that maybe serve to manage some underlying collective anxiety.
Can you give examples?
Well, think about societal myths or taboos that control behavior, or scapegoating entire groups to displace blame. Even something huge like war. Could that be, partly, a massive release of pent-up societal aggression? Or look at consumerism. Is it a way to channel unmet desires on a mass scale? Our obsession with productivity, maybe it's like a secular echo of the Protestant work ethic, kind of societal compulsion.
So collective behaviors as symptoms of collective anxieties. Person B, how well does that analogy hold up for you? Can we really diagnose a whole culture like we might an individual?
It's a powerful analogy, definitely makes you think. But I think we need to be careful about applying individual psychology terms directly to something as massive and complex as a culture.
Why the caution?
Cultures are shaped by so much history, economics, politics, sheer chance. Calling a whole culture pathological or neurotic risks massive oversimplification. And who gets to decide what's healthy for a society anyway? It's easy to impose your own biases.
So, useful metaphor, but maybe not a literal diagnosis.
Exactly. We can see harmful patterns, for sure. But diagnosing the whole system is tricky and maybe not quite accurate in the same way.
Good point. Okay, person A, this brings us to your final, quite stark point. The paradox that civilization itself, the thing we built to manage chaos, might actually be a kind of illness.
It's the core tension, I think. We build civilization by repressing our chaotic nature. We create rules, beliefs, structures to contain the messiness.
To cure the inner chaos.
Right, but what if the cure creates its own problems? Sublimation channeling energy into art or work, is that a real solution? Or just a constant reminder of what we can't have? How societies manage aggression war, fierce competition, even online rage. Maybe these aren't fixes, but just ways the aggression keeps cycling through. And guilt. Guilt is a powerful tool for control, always there.
So is civilization managing the symptoms rather than curing the disease? Is the structure itself the problem?
That's the unsettling question, yes.
Yeah.
Is the very foundation of order built on a kind of collective sickness?
Wow, a really sobering thought. Person B, hearing that, do you see any way out? Are there alternatives to this repressive model? Or is this just the human condition, we're stuck with it?
Well, is total freedom from any repression even possible?
Oh no!
Desirable. Maybe society would just fall apart.
So what's the alternative?
Perhaps it's not about eliminating repression, but finding healthier ways to deal with it, more conscious ways. Could things like more self-awareness, more open conversations, maybe more flexible structures help?
A less conflicted civilization?
Maybe. Or perhaps, as person A implies, this tension, this conflict is just fundamental to being human. That's a question that really stays with you, I think.
Absolutely. Some incredibly deep waters we've explored. Person A, as we wrap up, a final thought to leave us pondering.
Just this. As you question the old beliefs, watch out for the new ones you might be adopting without realizing it. Ask yourself, where do you really place your trust? What guides your actions? Is it your own choice, or have you just swapped one set of rules for another? Think about your own part in it all.
Important self-reflection. And person B, your final thought for listeners.
I'd say embrace the complexity we talked about. Humans are contradictory. We live with that tension between different impulses all the time. Keep questioning the forces shaping your life, your choices. Think about authenticity. The quest for understanding really starts inside you.
A fascinating, intense discussion. It seems the big questions don't have easy answers, but asking them, exploring them, remains absolutely crucial. Thank you both for taking us on this journey, and thank you, our listeners, for joining us again on The Deep Dive.